Yeah, I'd like to call this meeting to order. Public, please hold your comments until I open the agenda items for public comment. When addressing the board, state your full name, both in person and on Zoom. It is suggested that you enter your full name as your ID on Zoom. I will accept the motion to go into executive session.
Second.
All in favor?
Right.
Okay.
So it seemed like it was.
It won't be shy.
All right. I would like to make a motion to come back into, we don't have to. Joe.
We already did that.
So I would like to make a motion to close the town office on a date to be determined for personnel training.
Second.
All in favor?
You get 10 minutes, you wanna whip up some of the other business here into the public hearing?
Yeah, let's do the minutes.
Okay,
I will take a motion to approve the minutes of September 16, 2024.
I'll move them.
Second. All in favor? Appointments, recognitions, and resignations. Appointment of Heidi Smolage as warden for the November 5, 2024 general and referendum election.
Move appointment.
Second.
All in favor? Consider appointment of Heather Jones for Comprehensive Planning Committee.
Move appointment and welcome.
Second.
All in favor? Resignation of Kate Edwards, firefighter EMT, effective October 3, 2024.
Move
Move
acceptance of resignation with regret.
Second.
All in favor?
Moving away.
Resignation of Alan Kimmerly from the Land Use Advisory Committee, effective September 17, 2024.
Move resignation with thanks. Second.
All in favor? Consent agenda, Hancock County Budget Estimates 2025. Thank you letter from Life Flight. Down East Community Partners letter, September 16, 2024.
Move acceptance of the consent agenda as presented. Second.
All in favor? Yeah, any select board reports? We could review the budget warrant schedule.
Yeah.
Okay,
it's a draft.
okay, review the draft of the budget warrant schedule for 2025. It's looked fine to me.
It probably will be, there's always a few changes along the way, and I've got department head meeting tomorrow. So we'll talk about that. And I don't think there'll be any major changes to what that is. It's pretty much consistent with what we've had in past years, so. It is hard to believe it's here.
I know.
I feel the same way.
It's
You just do that?
You just did this, I swear.
the most magical time of the year.
One thing I don't see on this calendar is our Christmas party.
Oh, heaven,
That's not part of the
I
budget
know.
schedule.
But it's be fun to have it on there.
Okay, discuss moving the meeting location for the November 4th Select Board meeting on the eve of the presidential election. Is on the Northeast Harbor Fire Department Conference Training Room.
Where are we?
That's item I under new business.
Okay.
Okay,
Move approval.
Second.
all in favor?
So if you would call the last time we had an election that butted up,
Yeah.
I had signs that allowed people to come through and
Okay.
Mike generously let us go up to his training room there.
And are we gonna I forget if there, I know that the sound was difficult, more difficult in there, but was there we didn't have Zoom there last time, did we?
We did have Zoom,
We
the
did
owl
have-
was just too far away. So.
Okay, that's right. I knew that, okay.
Do a similar setup, but have the
As
help.
long as we do what we can do, that seems fine to me.
All right,
Did we move them? I don't even know.
we could do warrants.
Yeah, I could do.
All right, let's do the treasurer's warrants. Oh, wow, this is getting exciting.
All inside down.
Oh, I know. Okay, for approval and signature, town invoice AP 2523 in the amount of $1,766,084.06.
Move approval and signature.
Second.
All in favor? Approval and signature. State fees and payroll benefits, AP 2520, 2521, AP 2522, and town payroll PR 2507 in the amount of $340,093.70.
Move approval.
Second.
All in favor?
One abstention.
Abstention. Acknowledgement, school invoice, AP 04, school payroll, PR 07 in the amount of $268,677.86.
Move acknowledgement.
Second.
All in favor? Okay.
Driven by, I wanted to make a motion to adjourn, but I guess I'm not.
No, but I think it is time we can.
Yeah, I
probably
think we
start.
both could do the public here.
Okay, so I would like to start the public hearing. This is amendments to the general assistance ordinance, appendices A through H. This is something we do, I believe, every year.
Every October, yeah.
For those of you that have read, not the most scintillating document on the planet, but have comments to make, please make them now.
Make a motion, the public hearing be closed, hearing no comment from the public.
Second.
All in favor? Public hearing is now closed. Okay, anyone have anything to say about the amendments?
I would move their approval as presented.
Second.
All in favor? Right. Unfinished business, follow up on request of Chamber of Commerce to become a contracted municipal service and report of 2024 activities of the Chamber by Director Georgianne Sneed.
I came before you in July and gave you some details on the tourism services that we're providing on behalf of the town using the appropriation you gave us for this year. And I'm sure you all recall, those are maximum wayfinding signs and operation of the visitor center that the town owns in the marina. At that time, I promised that I would come back to you with more data and information on the activity at the visitor center. And so in your select board packet, you should have had a report that I put together. This was as of the end of August, that I prepared in the beginning of September. So this gives you a sense of the activities and what's gone on there so far this year. We are on track to exceed the number of visitors that we had in 2023. And by my estimation through yesterday, we should just slightly exceed 8,000 visitors to the center this year. So one of the things that I told you that we would do, that the details of which are provided in the pie chart on the back of the report, are to give you a sense of, what kind of interactions are taking place at the visitor center. And so we did break this down by categories and have been tracking it. It is interesting to note, although we do make, some referrals directly to businesses in the community. As an aside, that category question most frequently asked is, where is the best lobster roll? In general, the majority of the questions are of a more general nature, which is broken down on here. And 68.5% of the interactions are regarding directions and maps. So people come off boats, people are getting on or off the Island Explorer bus, or they've been dumped off the Park Loop Road in Seal Harbor and end up here looking for help of some kind, which we do provide. It will not surprise any of you that people who visit our villages are blown away by what they experience here once they get here. So that is the report I provided to give you kind of a sense of what goes on there and what we're dealing with. And as we mentioned, I also in July put forth the concept that since this is a service that we are providing for the town as a whole, that perhaps it would be appropriate to look at it, from a memorandum of understanding perspective as opposed to the third-party appropriation. We are in the midst of a strategic planning process in our own new budget cycle. So it would just be helpful at some point to have your inclination as to what your thoughts are on that request. So I am happy to answer any questions, and I always appreciate your attention and your feedback. Thank you.
Could we potentially put the discussion of an MOU on a future meeting date? How does that work on the third party request? Do you recall, Rick?
We as a board discuss who is going to be continuing to participate in the third party, and those that we would recommend as a board be removed from it because of the nature of the services that they provide directly to the town of Mount Desert. That's what the policy
The way
statement.
that's what I thought.
And at the same time, if I recall, that Rainy Branch made a similar request
Yes.
as part of the Historical Society.
Yeah.
So we had those two on the table, and so it's
Correct.
something you need to think about it.
I would point out, while I understand the desire for the chamber to feel that it's part of the town's regular budget, all of those line items are voted on at town meetings.
Oh, yes,
Also,
of course,
yeah,
certainly.
and considered by the board and the warrant committee. So it doesn't get you out of that.
And no,
Yeah.
we're not looking to get out of anything at all.
Yeah.
It's slightly different, I think, because it is a service that we would not necessarily provide if it was not, an arrangement that, everyone, this is an economic development activity, I think, that,
And actually, if you start to think about it, those ones get more scrutiny than the third parties, because
Right, because they're split out.
yeah, well, they come to you as part of when we do that first series. It goes under admin, those memorandums of understanding for contractor services. But then they have to go back to the warrant committee.
Right.
And so they get an individual one-on-one, whereas most of the third parties are all grouped together.
That's
So
right.
there actually is probably more review of the contracted services than there is for the third parties.
Yeah.
and to be clear, this may or may not be, the appropriate thing to do. It was just raised for conversation. At the end of the day, I think the most important thing from my perspective is that you all have a sense of what the money is being used for regardless.
Thank you.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
I appreciate that.
It looks like, for your information, that for our date would be December 16th, that we would be talking about that, based on this,
I'm sorry, when would that be?
December 16th.
And so what we would want to do, you would probably want to make a decision on that either at your next meeting or the first one in December, because I would have to send them out the forms and I'd have to enter their data into that budget that would be reviewed
Okay,
on the 16th. So I would need a little
more time.
more time in order to be able to get those out and have them fill it in, and me get them into Munis, and then actually print out the reports for your review. So you don't have to do it tonight, but you don't have till December either.
Right.
So I think that will-
I will say that I think that the chamber in running the visitor center provides an important service to the town. And keeping the signs updated and distributing maps to visitors, I think it's very helpful. If we didn't have a visitor center down there that was manned, they'd all be coming into the town office. I don't think Claire would welcome them.
70%.
8,000 more
8,000 people, yeah, that's all I can think of.
Point of clarification, Claire would welcome them, she just wouldn't appreciate it.
Touche there.
That's,
And I would also, and just because you did mention the other historical society, so we wanna be thinking about,
Both of those.
all right.
And then we would add them to the development calendar, so we'd remember to send them out. You'd add that on such a date, I will mail the requests to the two parties, so we wouldn't forget about them. I think I've confused you.
well, okay, cause I don't usually remind you to do that, but.
Yeah, but I'm getting along in years, so any type of a reminder I can get would be very helpful.
Next meeting or the first one?
Georgianne, the short answer is yes, we'll consider it.
It's
Yeah.
helpful to know the timing, so thank you.
Yes.
Yeah.
And if we could include in our packet for next meeting, a copy of the policy.
That's a great.
Yeah,
So that
that-
we can
Helpful.
at least review it and make sure we're consistent with what that policy says, would be helpful.
Yep, thanks, Rick.
And whatever
You mean the
decision we
third
make.
party policy that
Yes.
we did?
Yeah,
Yes,
because we went through quite a process to figure that out.
correct.
Yeah.
Good.
Okay,
Thank you very much. Okay, meeting with directors of ND 365.
That's you, Brianna.
Me, I'm the liaison.
Well, you wrote a
You
memo
were the meter.
regarding that
That's
meeting.
right.
So you want me to, oh, I see, you weren't trying to meet with the directors,
No.
you want me to report on my meeting.
Yes.
And I did send you a little
Yeah,
memo on
it's in the
that.
packet.
yeah,
Yeah, basically, the whole thing was that there aren't any changes in their philosophy as towards those particular units. They would like to continue on the path that they have. It's currently in the court. The order of build out of various projects may change, however, because of the money that they have on hand might be enough now to do the ones up on Summit Road. And they would fundraise it for 3 projects that they kind of meld all their fundraising into one project for Heelway, for the apartments on Main Street, and for the 2 units on Summit Road. But other than that, there really weren't any changes. They haven't accepted any donations or solicited any donations.
For the Heelway project?
Well, from the group that had approached them about maybe giving a donation
Oh, right, in lieu of.
in lieu of that, so that they did not accept that offer.
So your sense was that they're gonna continue to pursue that project?
Yeah, I think they're gonna pursue that project, but I don't have a timetable.
And, did they say anything about our resolution that we passed? In
Just that
support of the
just that they're grateful for my support.
Okay,
Thank you. New business, review of the role of the Luso Committee. Rick, you want to talk about that?
Do I want to talk about
Yeah.
it? We invited Gail Marshall here
Gail.
to address the issue. There was some concern that it has morphed in more ways than one and become something other than it was originally intended to be, and Gail would like clarification, I guess, going forward with exactly what do we want from our Luso? So, Gail?
In a nutshell, except that I don't have personal knowledge about the morphing process because I haven't been involved with it that long. As the newly minted chair, official chair, the last meeting, we got into this, Rick and I got into this exchange about the role of the Luso, and I decided, well, yeah, maybe it's time to get a sense of the scope of the portfolio of the Luso. I don't want to characterize what, I can tell you what my position was at that conversation, but I don't want to characterize what Rick said, so maybe if you wanna.
Well, the reason and I'll address initially the morphing of the Luso committee, as it were, going forward. It started out as a rather simple ad hoc committee to review inconsistencies in the Luso that needed to be taken care of, because there were parts of the Luso that, say, road frontage conflicted with lot size. And you had to have so many feet of road frontage, and I don't know, most of the board, John and I were on the board at the time. When some lots were pie-shaped and didn't have much road frontage, they had to then look at the lot size itself, or is that sufficient road frontage? And there were inconsistencies and incongruities in the Luso itself as a land use zoning ordinance, a standalone compilation of all matters to do with land in the town of Mount Desert. In 2010 or 11, the Luso got handed the task of crafting a quarrying ordinance, which became a freestanding ordinance of its own. At this latest meeting, and going back to last year, and part of the year before, we started looking at a freestanding subdivision ordinance. And that also came to the land use zoning ordinance. And I can see the links of subdivisions and land and all of that. But if we're creating a freestanding ordinance that sits outside of the Luso itself, does that fall within the purview of what the Land Use Zoning Ordinance Advisory Board was created for to begin with? So that's what I mean by morphing into something larger than it ever was. And that's not necessarily a bad thing. But I think it's important, not only for Gail as the now chair going forward, but for us to clarify as a board exactly what we expect from that committee as they do their work. We discussed how items that come before the Luso get placed into a queue, that they will be dealt with as they received in their particular order, and that no one issue is more important than another and should leapfrog to the front of the line to be addressed, and everything else gets put on a back burner and never gets to the warrant committee or on to town meeting. So it's changed in a lot of ways, and I think it merits some clarification for not only for ourselves, but for Gail and that committee going forward as to exactly what this town wants to see from that committee.
Is there a charter? Committee charter?
I don't know, so, no.
That was in my email to you, we had a plan.
Right, yeah.
Right, to have a charter, but none was ever put together, and we don't get minutes. Generally speaking,
Right, I have to convince somebody. To
yeah,
take it.
exactly, and I get it, but in a perfect world, we'd have
Yes.
some simple, easy to understand charter, and then everything would be publicly available on our website.
Right,
You know, in a perfect world, we'd have a really functional website too, but,
but if I get somebody I'd like to just add on or respond to some of what.
yeah, but
First of all, we do already have subdivision ordinance. It has been on the books for a long time. It is required by, there's a lot of state law that has to be. So the subdivision ordinance, the review of that was in progress when I joined the board last year, because it was perceived that that is an unwieldy ordinance. It's not user-friendly by either the planning board, which I'm also now on, or the public. So the goal, as I understood it, in reviewing and possibly replacing that, was to make it a more user-friendly document that also was up to date with respect to changes in state law. So that's that process relative to that. As I perceive it, or I understood it, the planning board has ostensibly has the responsibility to bring before the public proposed changes or amendments or improvements to the land use ordinances But the planning board, and I can affirm this now, it has its hands full just managing the processing of applications. So it seemed like having an additional advisory board to take that initial responsibility for vetting and trying to provide those improvements. And I will say that there are, in addition to me, there are other planning board members who now are more regularly attending those meetings as well. That would be the place where a broader cross-section of the community, not just the planning board, could engage on these issues and try to bring things, not only as recommendations, that, you know, that committee doesn't have its own authority to pose anything. It's gotta go to the planning board, and ultimately the planning board has to have the public hearings and pass a judgment on whether or not it's something that should go forward as a postmortem. I don't see any difference from the point of view, the planning board has to administer the quarry ordinance, has to administer the subdivision ordinance, has to administer the LUZO. So I see it as a somewhat artificial distinction to say that the planning board should be doing only relating to LUZO stuff and not doing these other things. Those have got to get done, and unless you propose having separate committees for all of those things, and I encourage you to think about finding the person power to run those committees, it makes sense for that to be a one-stop shop, unless there's some other way to organize that. In terms of how things come up and get this worked on by the committee, I have tried in the few months that I've been involved in trying to organize this to develop priority lists. I mean, we have things that need to be dealt with as a matter of changes to state law. We have things that have been in the works for a while that need attention. We have things that seem more urgent. And we have also things that people would like to consider, but probably are best handled in the comprehensive plan process. So we are trying to prioritize, not based on time of receipt, but based on time of significance as we perceive it to the ongoing work of the community and the planning board. I will say my fundamental desire is always to find ways to make these ordinances more user-friendly. And I feel that ever more keenly every time I attend a planning board meeting and try to process a non-conforming structure application, for example. That's one of my favorite bugaboo right now, because it's a real challenge. Heidi can attest to that. And I will always be looking for ways that we might be able to make those things cleaner and more user-friendly. But I also know that in the real world, when it comes to legislation, it comes to ordinances, it comes to that sort of thing, they only always get more. And there's a couple of reasons for that, and I won't go into that, but I can if you want to. But they're always get more complicated. We always complain that they're getting too complicated. And we have to make our best effort to continue to make them relevant and meaningful to the community where it is now and where we'd like to see it be 10 years from now. So that's my perception of, maybe amorphous perception of what I think what I saw is what that committee might be engaged in, and hopefully a beneficial way.
Well, I mean, that was initially, it was about cleaning up the ordinances in a broad sense. It was getting rid of the sunset ordinances and so forth, and cleaning that up, getting rid of redundancies, getting rid of conflicts. And Noel's been part of that for, what has it been, 15 years?
No. Yeah.
15 years, yeah. So yes, that committee was charged with that. Okay.
Given birth.
What happened was these new ordinances came in. And we all turned and said, hey, you guys can deal with this.
Yeah.
And so that wasn't part of the original charter.
Appendices.
It does seem logical to me, though, the way it is more, if that's the word you want to use, into taking on new ideas that bubble up from the community. That just makes sense to me, because where else is it gonna happen but in the LUZO committee? I would encourage the LUZO committee to come to us with a very simple one-page charter about your goals are and and then you can refer to that.
Mhm.
I mean, I think you could discuss among yourselves and then we can take a look at it and see what we
Okay.
think.
And if I might make one point of clarification, there was never the intent of the advisory board, or myself, to suggest the planning board only focus on the land use zoning ordinance. We didn't parse that out. I simply said that we formed the committee to look at the land use zoning ordinance. We were then to bring in the quarrying ordinance, then to bring in the subdivision ordinance. So other ordinances were becoming part of the unwieldy land use zoning ordinance that we were trying to clean up. And it has since morphed into, what it is now. And we make a lot of recommendations to the planning board to then recommend to the warrant committee to see them go before town meeting. It's just that we've been doing it kind of like shooting from the hip, if you will, because somebody felt that it was an important issue and it went right to the front of the class. Well, we identify every year at the beginning issues that need to be worked on in the course of that year to be prepared for and presented to town meeting. And it's disingenuous to allow other issues to jump to the head of the class, so to speak. And other folks in town have been waiting for their issue to be addressed, and it kept getting pushed back because other things were getting in the way and needed. Well, we better talk about that now because we gotta have that ready for town meeting. And there
That's
are,
happening all the time too, Rick. We've got another one that's just come to us, came to you guys last summer about the tables out on the sidewalk.
Correct.
I mean, that's bubbling. Where would that go into a priority list? Things like that. So yeah, I agree. I think there has been some leapfrogging, no doubt.
And I just got an email about that today from
Yeah.
Kim. So one of the questions I would have is, where does the responsibility for responding to that initially lie? Is that in the Luso, or would it be the select board who would say, Luso, we think this is an issue that's worth pursuing, see what you can do?
You know,
I
I
mean-
was thinking it would be the select board, Gil, and say, this is
We,
what we
we did
really
discuss
want.
it last summer
Yeah,
and
this is what we want to have happen next year, and
Provide
kind of like a
direction. to go before.
triage list. You get these 3 items you need to get done. If you get time for a 4th, here'd be number 4. I mean, that might be some way of bringing some order out in the chaos.
Right.
I
Mr.
agree.
Chairman,
Should be priority.
is there any, Jed, could I just add a couple of thoughts to this since I've been working on it since the beginning, I guess. I just want to echo what I think Rick said is we do every year, even before now, prioritize and come up with a list right after town meeting every year of all the things that we want to work on. Or the committee does. And then as the course of time, some of those things take more time than other things to get right. So there are things that are being worked on even now that may or may not even make it to town meeting this year because they take a little bit more time. And then I do think the committee maybe needs to work on a process of how you want to prioritize things that come in at the last minute. But there are things that come in that we have to be responsive to, or the town is trying to be responsive to help get back to the root of the reason why the Luso committee was formed to begin with, which was to make the ordinance easier. And sometimes those things don't meet the same timelines. Mount Desert starts planning for town meeting articles like very, very early. And sometimes people are behind the 8 ball when they think about it. So I think that's one thing. I like Martha's suggestion if we need to kind of clarify what the role is, and maybe Luso committee might be a little misleading given the scope of the review. But there are things that aren't classically planning board reviews either. So if we're talking about like the sale of food and merchandise ordinance, or we talked about the Luso committee worked on the licensing ordinance for mobile food vendors and things like that might not be under the purview traditionally of the planning board. So it does serve a really good I think it's a good sounding board committee for a lot of these sort of land use-ish policies that you guys have to deal with. And I think that it's a nice, it's been more and more cooperative with the planning board in terms of schedule and stuff. So it's starting to work out a lot better in terms of board members and committee members knowing kind of what's coming down the line. So that's been really helpful over the past couple of years, I'd say. Thank you.
I have a question, and it's on our agenda for next meeting. There's a proposed solar ordinance that's in the works. And I guess, given this discussion, I would like to ask, is that something that this board feels as though that committee should be reviewing at this point in time with an eye towards possibly presenting it at next town meeting?
Is
And
that-
I know it's worked on that.
What do you
a lot.
mean by
Yeah.
a soul?
Well, it's a new ordinance,
Right,
like a
right.
quarry ordinance or a subdivision ordinance or the
placement of solar.
communication towers.
Is it for the placement of solar?
Placement for solar,
Okay.
solar,
Yes,
okay. All right,
Yeah.
just-
Yeah.
Land.
absolutely, because we have nothing else.
Yeah,
But I
No, you
also
don't.
think I mean, like, in talking about prioritizing,
Right.
I feel like we've got a good start on some solar panels within the town.
Yep.
And so as far as prioritizing, I mean, I think solar is super important, but I also think if there's ordinances like this sidewalk use ordinance or whatever we're gonna call it, and that needs, that's had a specific request to go into effect like next summer, I would think we would work on that before we would do a solar, because we've got Plan A going on solar with what we've already approved. That's just sort of my 2 cents worth.
Yeah, I think the drift of the solar ordinance is to try to define, based on the size of the installation.
Okay,
yeah.
Try to define
So
what's
it's
appropriate.
okay, I got you, sorry,
Like Trenton.
So that's a little
Right.
bit.
that makes more sense, okay,
Yeah.
It's not
sorry,
promoting solar. it's-
okay,
Yes,
Yeah.
okay, more specific, got it,
Yeah, that seems like it.
Yes.
yes.
Absolutely.
okay, all right, thank you.
So I just wanted to make a comment, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, and I might be wrong, but when you were talking about a charter for the Luso committee, charters are usually something that's put into place for boards that have authority to make decisions, like the select board, the planning board, the zoning board. So I think it might just be semantics, but you maybe want to talk about it as a policy.
Okay,
versus-
policy.
Or
Okay.
mission,
Yeah,
mission
good.
statement, whatever.
Yeah, okay, I
Whatever,
just wanted to confirm that we're not giving authority to.
No, but that's a good
Good
point.
point,
So policy statement,
Thank you.
definition, self-definition.
Right,
appreciate the conversation. That's-
thank
Yeah.
you. All right, are we done?
And congratulations on being chair.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you so much.
Okay, now on to the MRC Board of Directors nomination.
I should not, when I think about now, I sent him an email asking where they were from. When I found out they were in Mount Desert, I should just have killed the thing at that point instead of putting it in the things. There's really nothing for you to vote for. Because there's no nominees from this town, so it's already taking
All right.
over, killing all the trees.
All right, well,
put
that's-
that in there.
I knew
Yeah.
that.
Suspense
Yeah,
was really.
yeah, once I got that, right, still, I'd already had it sort of in as a placeholder, then I just forgot to take it out when I stopped.
That's fine.
No action, all right.
No action
Okay,
necessary.
we'll forgive you now.
Thank you.
Consider releasing $5,100 from the fire station building reserve account 4040-300-2447 for the purpose of overhead door repairs at 2 fire stations.
I'll move approval.
Second,
All in favor?
gotta be able to get those trucks.
I know, I'm not even gonna ask. Review and approve heating oil contract with Coastal Energy and authorize Public Works Director on behalf of the town to execute same.
Move approval.
Second,
All in favor? Review and approve winter sand contract with Harold McQueen, Inc. and authorize Public Works Director on behalf of the town to execute same.
Move approval.
second,
All in favor?
The only one that returned to bid.
Review and approve memorandum agreement with Maine Department of Transportation on the Soamesville Sidewalk Project and authorize Public Works Director on behalf of the town to execute same.
I move approval.
second.
All in favor?
Don't let him get started.
Moving along. Review and approve memorandum agreement with Maine Department of Transportation on the Seal Harbor Sidewalk Project and authorize Public Works Director on behalf of the town to execute same.
Move approval.
Second.
All in favor? Review and approve utilities receivable agreement with Maine Department of Transportation on the Babson Brook Bridge replacement and utility relocation and authorize Public Works Director on behalf of the town to execute same.
Move approval.
Second,
All in favor?
yeah, it was not unconfusing. That whole package. So could you just give us, just in the 2,000 foot view, so in order for this, we have to pay for a certain part of it, but we have to sort of buy into their schedule and they use their contractors. Is the basic
Yeah.
idea. So,
And that, because of timing of getting things done, it should be the best route.
yeah, it sounded like that makes sense, but we have to sign up on like, yes, we'll pay and you guys decide everything else.
Yes, we
All right.
agree that we.
Thank
use
you.
the contract with them.
Appreciate it.
We have to replace that utility. Our utility is in their infrastructure.
Right.
Like,
Okay,
we have to replace
you're
that
right.
utility.
Okay,
Oh, we knew this was coming.
yes, we
I
did.
didn't know this agreement was coming. I would have liked to have heard this before Wednesday.
Yeah.
That would have been handy, but
All right,
we know the project.
thank you.
When is the project coming?
They want to, advertise our bids on October 16th. Open bids, I think, a month later. I think it's next fall, they can start for the temporary bridge. Two-lane temporary.
All right then.
Okay,
Did you vote on that?
Not yet.
Sort of voted on it.
Sort of voted on it.
So.
all in favor?
Thank you.
Okay. Now is our public comment period. Any public comment on tonight's proceedings
Or random
or
suggestions.
random suggestions?
Invite those.
Okay, any other business?
No second.
Have we done the one?
I know.
Yeah, and I will take a motion to adjourn.
So move.
Second.
All in favor?
I
All right.
like going backwards.